we're back. We're back from our trip. We had a small camper mishap. When I got back to the mine, this whole sheet had folded back and this one was folding out. And obviously the whole front of the camper here has exploded. So that's related to that water leak. It's a problem when they sit. These things don't get noticed. Anyways, there was a water leak, and it sat for at least 2 years with no one going in it. And then I found it and fixed it, but obviously we did some damage. So I found good wood inside there, and I was able to screw to it. Now I need to pull this whole front part here and find out, I've always told people if their campers get a water leak, just trash them, they're not worth fixing. And here I am fixing mine. But I pull that strip up. I don't know if I'll pull it all the way off, but I'll pull that strip up and I'll find out if there's anything in the front there that's any good. The water leak was in the top and it kind of ran down. Okay, well, on the upshot, there's still some decent wood in there, so that's good. Obviously all this butyl tape has failed. So this is obviously lapped on top. There's a seam in there they're supposed to slip up into, and I suspect it's way too beat up for me to get it back in the seam, but I'm gonna make an attempt. Same goes right here. This isn't quite as beat up, but it pulled back all the way into there, so I don't know that I can ever get these to slip together again. And then obviously you got to deal with this joint right in here. Let's get some of these staples into nowhere out. So that's a repair I did, God only knows how many years ago, just to hold trim on, and that held fine. So I suspect, oh, look, it's wicking water back in there too. I suspect that I could go from these 1-inch screws to a 1.5-inch or a 2-inch screw. I think we're going to be okay. It's those seams I don't know how to put back together. Okay, as bad as it looks, it's still pretty solid. It's actually quite solid in there. So I've pulled all the staples, get them out of my way. I've got some insulation. I think the insulation just got stuffed down in there. I'm just going to stuff some more in. I do not know how I'm going to get that seam back together, but I'll give it a try, and maybe I can cut it and leave this section out and slip the rest in, and then at least it's better than it was. This one looks a little more promising. It's quite a bit straighter. First though, I need to get a Sharpie and mark on the trailer. I guess we'll call them studs. We'll call them ribs. Mark where the ribs are. My wife's gonna, but there's gonna be marks on there. Yeah. There'll be a few marks on there. Let's do that. I'd sure hate to be hunting for a stud behind that. All right, I don't know if I can show this one-handed, but it's working okay. Kind of like it. See how I got the screwdriver jammed in the crack? Kind of like putting on a bicycle inner tube. Alright, I'm going to need 2 hands for that corner. That worked okay, so I fought it in over there, and I kind of work it and push it and work it and push it, and it's snapping back together. Not perfectly, but we'll come back through and we'll tap that seam flat when we get prepared to tape this thing. Alright, I gotta get the end of it. Yeah, it definitely worked. Put it in there. I just pulled it along that joint and it just went back together. This one went back together. Alright. Still looks ugly, but that is much better than I ever thought I'd get her. Okay, so now at least we got a proper lap, which means sealing and leaks won't be quite as critical. I think I need to start cleaning these seams off for the adhesive though. So I'm going to do that probably with Windex or something alcohol. I don't want to leave any residues. Look at this thing. He's talking about residue. Also going to hit myself with mosquito spray. Alright, now I'm trying to pick off this, what do they call it, butyl tape? Buna tape? I'm not entirely sure. This crap. Because, well, I don't think anywhere it's been I'll get any seam tape to stick to it. But I might as well get it out of my way. I'm going to work on scraping that off. And then I have an assortment of tapes that we can look at and decide together. Or more importantly, I'll talk to myself about and then show you which one I used. They're all stuff from building the house. It don't look too bad though. It don't look too bad. There's where it all began, right there. I can tell you there's not much solid right in there. That's kind of scary. It is dry in there though, so I've managed to keep, look at it going all the way across. Bad news bears. That's the seam that failed. Alright, what I've been doing is I've been going down and stitching it all together. I know it's a million holes in the thing, but if this side peels back again, none of the rest of this really matters. So I'll continue on down and I'll piece them together using my marks. And then I'll put this trim back on. Instead of that butyl tape, I'll use lap sealant. It's essentially what the trailer was put together with from the factory. Really expensive, but very good stuff. This is that lap sealant. I mean, there's a couple of companies that make it, but this is what I've been using. 502 LSW self-leveling. And it essentially never hardens. And so it's actually literally what these campers are put together with today. Not mine, obviously. It's put together with that butyl tape crap, but that's what modern campers are put together with. You never, ever, ever, ever want to use silicone. Never, 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 never. And if you've already got silicone up there, scrape as much as you can off. Use some steel wool, get the residue off, and then make a patch. Sort of puddle this over the top. I suggest washing with like white vinegar or alcohol first. But I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna fill up that gap. I have a problem. I don't like how it's bowed out. I would very much like to fill this joint because that self-leveling stuff, it's gonna squirt out everywhere. So I need to figure out a way to hold this together without interfering with the trim piece. And I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. Maybe these big pan head screws wouldn't actually get in the way of that trim piece. It does. Oh yeah, yeah. It's got a groove on the back. All right, so I figured out what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and poke some more holes in it and try not to chase that ripple up. But I'm gonna stick her all together. Then I'm gonna fill that. I'm gonna scrape this again because clearly I didn't do a good enough job. You don't want. I mean, it'll stick to anything, but if it's sticking to stuff that's already peeling off, that's no bueno. I'm gonna stitch this together and I'm gonna fill that crack. This is vapor barrier seam tape. This is Blue Summit Supplies. using it because it's white, although I'm not 100% sure on its UV resistance, but you can see that I've taped over all the seams that split. And I managed to find a handful of roofing screws with the rubber washers, so while it looks a lot uglier, I replaced what I had down here anyways with those. That way these are all self-sealing and I don't have to go back and gloop them. I'm gonna have to put some stuff over the rest of them. Yeah, I think that'll work. It's designed to be permanent. It's the UV, that'll be the question. And obviously if it fails, I'll have to go over it with like zip tape or something. I might have to clean it all off. That could be a real chore, but for the moment, that's what I've done. If you're curious, check how many months or years past this video is, and I'll tell you. Email me and I'll tell you if it still holds up. So as I said, I filled that crack with lap sealant and then stitched the whole thing closed. These should all be underneath my trim. Now I've got to goop it up on top and then lay that trim in here. And then I probably will be okay after that. Well, as it always is with this lap sealant stuff, it went sideways. I couldn't get the trim to index in the right place fast enough, and then I had the wrong nut driver to run in the longer screws, and it started to skim. You really can't smooth this stuff. It's not like silicone. I've got it on my everything forever, but and that upper corner is basically a puddle of lap sealant up there, but this should do it. It should be fixed and good for, I don't know, if another 30 years, but good at least till the rubber roof starts to fail. When the rubber roof starts to fail, then she'll become an equipment trailer or something. But for the moment, I'm pleased. It's fine. It's done.